चेंज हो गया इस पे ये वाला लिंक डालो So, good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this reviewers training workshop. And this is season 2. Actually, we had the season 1 last year, sometime in June. And upon request, this season 2 has been scheduled this year. And I'm very proudly, I can say that most of the reviewers from the GeoBCR are also here. This reviewers workshop is brought to you by Craniofacial Research Foundation and the editorial board of the Journal of Oral Biology and Craniofacial Research. So before we talk much on the reviewers workshop, let's have a poll and see what is our participants group like. Most of you have been a reviewer for some or the other journal, but let's see how many of you have been a reviewer, maybe for a few years or maybe more than 10 years. So just click on the option which is right for you. I hope you can see the polling questions on the screen. Richa?
No, I can't see.
No, ma'am, it's not.
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Okay, it's not visible. Okay. Richa, can you see what's happened to the polling
Yeah,
question?
ma'am, I just launch it from my end.
Yeah, please. So good evening, everyone.
So
And now it's
I
visible.
launched it.
So this is the training workshop, and this is season 2. Actually, we had the season 1 last year, sometime in June, and upon request, this season 2 has been scheduled this year. And I'm very proudly, I can say that most of the reviewers from the GeoBCR are also here. This reviewers workshop is brought to you by Craniofacial Research Foundation and the editorial board of the Journal of Oral Biology and Craniofacial Research. So before we talk much on the reverse workshop, let's have a poll and see what is our participants group like. Most of you have been a reviewer for some or the other journal, but let's see how many of you have been a reviewer, maybe for a few years or maybe more than 10 years. So just click on the option which is right for you. Richa, could we manage to launch the poll questions? I hope you can see the polling questions on the screen.
Ma'am,
Richa?
I had launched the poll.
Yeah.
People are answering also.
Okay, good. I can't see, so that's
No,
why I
ma'am,
was
it's not
interested.
visible.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So almost 68% have voted.
Okay.
So
Richa, can you see
yeah, ma'am, I just launch it from my end.
polling question?
So I launched it.
And now it's visible.
Yeah, please.
Please let me know when should I end the poll.
Once you are 70-75%, you may end. And this is season 2. You had the season 1, half season 2, and upon request, this season 2 has been scheduled again. Very proudly, I can say that most of the participants are also here. You may share the results. Okay. What is our participant look like? Most of you have been a reviewer for some or the other journals, but let's see how many of you have been a reviewer, maybe for a few years or more than 10 years. So just click on the option which is right for you.
And can we share the results of the poll right now?
There's some noise coming. Hope it's better now. Yeah. So I'll share my screen now. Let's start the session. So I'll be moderating the session for today. Myself, Professor Divya Mehrotra. I'm the editor-in-chief for the Journal of Oral Biology and Craniofacial Research. I'm working in the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery at King George's Medical University. The speakers for today are Mr. Varun Bhatia from Elsevier. He'll be talking on why get involved in peer review. And the second speaker is Professor Charlene Chandra. He'll be talking on why we should be using Orc Id or Publons. So over to you, Varun.
Hi, Dr. Divya.
Yeah,
Hi, everybody. I did not see the results, but
Okay.
looked like there was a good proportion of people across all the groups, and I saw many people not knowing about Research Academy. So I think this is a great session for that. Plus, I think I'll also try to highlight some other things that are there from a reviewer perspective on Elsevier. So let me just quickly share my screen. And Dr. Divya, how much time do I have? About 20 minutes, I
Yes,
assume?
yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. Just to give you a quick introduction, I am a product manager for. I'm the product manager for Elsevier Review Hub. I work for Elsevier. I'm based out of London, and my passion and what I really do day to day is basically the job of engaging reviewers and helping editors like Dr. Divya to get the most relevant reviewer, to find the most relevant reviewer. So. Uh, I'm not an academic, so I don't come from that background. So I'm fairly objective about it when I'm looking at some of these problems. But I think over the last 1.5 years, as I've picked these things up, I'm more into the shoes of an editor and a reviewer, and I better understand the problems of this world, right? So some of the things that I'm focused on is helping journals connect to helping editors connect to relevant reviewers, making the whole process of reviewing more efficient from a journal perspective, respecting reviewers' time and privacy, because I think there is an editor side and there's also a review aspect to this on how reviewers perceive the invites and everything. And also how do we get reviewers across this different sorry, Dr. Divya, I hear a lot of noise.
Yes, I think I am also listening a lot of noise. Let's see what we can do to.
No worries. I'll continue talking if it's.
I'll mute all, and you please unmute yourself.
Okay. Does it work?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. And finally, I think when I looked at the poll, there was an equal distribution of the reviewers with different amount of time spent in reviewing. So also, how do we guide editors, right, to, especially early career researchers, to actually move up the reviewer ladder, right, and basically move from understanding what a review process is and how do they review for high quality journals. Now, my background, I'm an engineer from Pune. Then I did my MBA from Oxford, and I've been in this role for about 5 years. But I basically work across technology, strategy, and products. So very different from a background possibly all of you have. Okay, let me get into the agenda, right? So what am I going to talk about today? There are three things, right? One is the importance of peer review. And especially I think this would be very relevant for somebody who has not reviewed or who are early reviewers. Why get involved in peer review? And then I want to get into the how of it, right? What are some of the ways that you can start getting involved in this particular process? Okay, so I'll start off with this statistic because given you are all academics, I think you'll like that. But one of the publications from Publons says 98% of the researchers whose article has been published basically consider peer review as a very important aspect of to ensure the general quality and integrity of scholarly communication, right? Which means almost everybody thinks peer review is fairly important. Now, as reviewers, and I want to get that aspect, as reviewers, you are basically an extension of editors to ensure that you're the gatekeepers of this research literature, right? And ensure that sound search is published across all the journals and across all the publications. Also, being on the other side, when we see across 2,500 journals in Elsevier, what you also notice is this is the first place where often the unsound science, right, where you have problems in research come up. So review process is fairly important, and reviewers are a fairly important component of this entire process. And I think that's something that you should keep in mind before I get into what's your role in that, right? So why get involved in peer review? And I found this very interesting article on the Elsevier site when I was preparing for this, which basically gave a framework on a truth framework, right? On why get involved in a peer review. I'll just go through it one by one. But the first thing is the time to reflect, right? As a reviewer involved in the thing, you have an opportunity to reflect on others' work and provide constructive feedback, right? For advance, and this everything that you provide is basically for advancement of science. So it's an important role that you play. And at the same time, the author also gets perspective from somebody who's not involved in the paper and get a neutral perspective and an objective perspective of that. Second is from research quality perspective, right? Now, there was an interesting quote which said, we all look at reviews, right? Whether it's Amazon, whether it's other products, and we only buy things which are So I almost think of reviewers as someone who's very much responsible for improving the quality. And in this case, the product is the research paper. So you act as not only a gatekeeper, but also someone who is there to advance the quality of the research that is going out there, right? I think this is fairly obvious, but as a reviewer, I think there's an ethical responsibility to ensure that when you are objectively looking at some work, right, you are questioning the claims, you are making sure that the experiments or the data behind it is sound, and it is something that the claims that are made, you're vetting it with a very objective perspective. One of the most important things I've heard from a lot of reviewers when I actually speak to them is it's a great training to write your own paper, because when you're reviewing a paper, the lens that you have is very different from an author's lens, right? So when you're actually writing a paper, this also gives you a perspective to think about what could be some of the comments and structure the paper in a better way, and structure publication in a better way. I've also heard from a lot of reviewers that this process also helps them connect to the journals. So if they want to publish in certain journals, it's something that is of utmost importance, and helps them experience what's their experience with the journal as well. And finally, helping each other. I think this is, I mean, one thing that amazed me when I got into this academic world is how reviewing as an opportunity is absolutely voluntary, right? It's a collegiate community. Everyone contributes so that everyone is better at the end of it. So one thing I don't think so is reflected here is which I think is becoming more and more, and where some of my focus is also the recognition, right? Increasingly, reviewing as an activity is becoming more and more important. As Elsevier, we want reviewers to be recognized. We want reviewers to be showcasing their work. Obviously, with the kind of activity reviewers, you can't disclose sometimes what papers you're reviewing for because of integrity. But at the same time, nothing stops us from highlighting as a part of our learning and as a part of the certificates and recognition on how you can publish some of this, what you have contributed back to the community. And increasingly, we are seeing a lot of institutions actually recognizing that work as a part of your day-to-day duties. So why it is important, and why what is the role of a reviewer, but how do you actually get involved? And I think some of these things would really resonate with people who are in early stage. So first thing is co-review, right? A lot of reviewers get involved in co-reviews, and I think it happens by nature. So if you want to do a paper review, please reach out to your supervisor, please reach out to your PI, and ask them to make you a part of the process. What is increasingly the trend, the way things are going? Like in my world as well, we are trying to now think, okay, how do we recognize co-reviewers? How can we incentivize them? At the same time, how do we let the editors know that someone has been a part of the co-review, so that they get independent reviews down the line, right? But it's a great stepping stone for somebody to be involved in. The second is, all journal editors are absolutely delighted and absolutely excited about anybody who goes to the site and registers or basically on those journals. So it's important to be specific. At the same time, it's important to connect to the journal editors. So don't stop yourself from dropping a note to a journal editor, dropping in details. But one thing that is very important is on the editor side, whenever they look at a reviewer, they want more details about the review, right? So I know there's a session later on about Publons and Orc Id, but stuff like Scopus profile, right? Your Scopus profile, I mean, ensure that it's up to date, ensure it's all out there. So when the editors come to your profile, they can find you, they can discover you, and they can invite you for the right papers. The third thing I want to mention is, I mean, this is pretty close to what I've been doing in the last year, but we recently launched a feature called the Volunteer to Review on Elsevier Review Hub. So as reviewers, you can get into the Elsevier Review Hub. log in and basically review for any journal of your, basically give your option for any journal of your choice. Now, this is in pilot stage. It doesn't stop a reviewer for registering their interest. But what we are trying to now slowly open up is make this available on the editor side. But it's a way for us to also accelerate this process of connecting the reviewers to the editors and making sure when the editors are actually looking for reviewers, they know who is willing and they who is not. And so far we have had very good success rates out of this. Sorry, I'm just going to move my screen over here. So I just wanted to go a little deeper into the volunteering to review pilot. So what you see over here is a screenshot of the product, right? So you can log into Review Hub. If you've not seen Review Hub, it's a product we launched last year, and I basically manage that product. But it's basically to encourage reviewers to have all the reviewing activities, whether it's invitations, whether they're certificates, whether they're rewards, at one place. So if you have ever reviewed for an Elsevier journal, you can come over here and look at your certificates. You can look at your credits. You can download it straight away from the tool. But it gets everything at one place. And one of the important parts of doing this was also, how do we get more reviewers to review for this plethora of journals that we have over here? So as a reviewer, you can get in over here, search for the journal of your choice. And if you see that button on the right hand side, you just click on it, and that's it. Your reviewer intent is automatically available to the editor, and they decide when they want to invite you. The other thing is also, especially I saw that almost 50% of the pool here are early stage reviewers. So either they have not done a review, or they are somebody who are uneven for experienced reviewers, right? The Elsevier Researcher Academy, and I think if I remember the stats, what about 20% of you have seen it. But the Elsevier Researcher Academy is basically a tool, a place where you have detailed modules of what does a review process look like, how should you do a peer review. It's a course of about 12 modules. Why the peer review? The question I'm asking over here. But it's a great set of things which you can do once or many times to whenever you're doing a peer review, right? So it's a free for all. You can register. You can show your intent, and especially if you're an early stage, early career researcher who is just about to start peer reviews. We have seen a lot of editors actually wanting to know whether you have done any kind of peer review course, because it just shows that you are serious about doing that, and you will do a good job because you've done your homework behind it. But please, I'll encourage you to actually go there and actually look at the peer review course as well. The third is, as I just briefly mentioned, we are building a platform for reviewers and at Elsevier, and it's basically targeted towards problems of, okay, how do we get all the peer review activity at one place, right? How do we get all the invitations at one place? How do you just go to one place to understand where are your certificates? What are the rewards that you can claim, or the volunteering? We'll also want to expand this slowly to understand from reviewers on which journals you want to review for and which journals you don't want to review for, right? So that we can better inform the editors on the other side to invite people who are really interested in certain journals. I'll jump into the thing. So I just want to recap again, and I wanted to be quick so that we get some time for questions. But peer review is fairly important, and trust me, every time you go ahead and you peer review an article, a manuscript, you are helping out in advancing science, and it's a fairly important process. We at Elsevier do recognize all peer reviewers. We think they're fairly important and critical part of the process, and we do want to engage them. So if you have any questions, anything around it, please do reach out to me. And finally, I've mentioned a few things around how we are evolving on peer review. Please do try them out. Please do check on them. And again, there's a link over here, which is on the publishing lab. So as we evolve our products, we do want the community to be involved in it. And if you want to be a part of that, I mean, please feel free to register yourself over here. And whenever we are building products, we would love to reach out to some of the reviewers to get their inputs and to understand their problems better. Okay, I don't know whether I was fast or slow, Divya, but hopefully that leaves us some time for questions.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Perfect timing. I would like to say that the thing you said, I want to reassure again. Any journal can do good only if the reviewers are good and timely reviewing that brings about faster publication and maintaining the ethics. And as you said, the gateway, they are the gateway. So if the journal has got good articles, the credit goes to the reviewers. But many times reviewers say, why do we don't get recognized? Why don't we get something like financial awards or something? So since we have been running this journal for last 11 years now, initially it was really problem how to get the reviewers, but we started with the reviewer recognition program, and that encouraged most of the reviewers to join the journey with us. And again, we also, I think Elsevier also has this policy, I believe, to rate the reviewers. So because I asked the Elsevier group to let me know who are the 50 best reviewers for the journal, and then we think of something how to acknowledge them, how to. So that is a great thing from Elsevier. Um, if there are any questions from the participants for the Elsevier group, you may please raise your hand and we'll ask you to speak up.
Yeah, one thing, Dr. Devi, I do want to mention is I don't know how many of the reviewers know this, but every time you do a review for Elsevier, and this is again, I think incentivizing reviewers, there is a lot of conflict. There's a lot of you can't financially motivate them, financially incentivize them. But so one thing we do try to do as we go along. So one of the rewards, if you've not seen, is if you've done a review for Elsevier in the last 6 months, you can go to the rewards tab of you see it over here. There's a rewards tab over here, and basically you get a 30-day Science Act Scopus access free. And the more rewards you do, I mean, it's your personal access, it's not your institutional access. So if your institution doesn't have it, if you are not in the proxy of the thing, it's one way for us to incentivize. And we are constantly thinking, how do we do it more and more? So I do understand the recognition part of it. I see two questions, two hand raised.
Yeah, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, sure. Dr. Gupta.
Dr. Vivek Gupta.
Good evening, sir and ma'am. Sir, actually, I just wanted to know that in order to introduce oneself to the journal editor, what details should I give to the editor so that he may know that I had been a reviewer in Pavlon, and I had also been registered in Pavlon and Orc Id for the same. So what details should I give to the editor?
Yeah, Dr. Gupta, so I think it's a great question. So one of the things I mentioned to you, volunteering to review, right? One of the things we did there was because I think when I look, and Dr. Divya, you can add, but when editors look at it, right, they want to know your author history. So they want to know your publication history. They want to know your expertise. What fields are you an expert in? I think a lot of editors also say they want to know whether you've done an Elsevier online, the Research Academy course, or any other kind of training for doing better peer reviews, or they want to know which PR lab you are a part of, or your website and other things. So they need a holistic picture about the reviewer. One of the things on that volunteering thing is you can link your Scopus profile to your thing, so you can go and claim your Scopus profile. And if you have multiple Scopus profiles, you can claim multiple Scopus profiles. But it's all a part of actually having that information together and then passing it on to the editor.
Yeah.
So how can we have the Scopus profiles? I have been registered in Pavlon and Orc Id, but I do not know how to get that Scopus one. If you can throw some light on that, sir.
Okay, so one thing is, do you find yourself on Scopus? Are you able to find yourself on Scopus?
I have really not seen, sir, that.
Okay, so if Dr. Gupta, if you go to Review Hub, right, and there is a profile button there. that actually links. There's a claims process, so that links you to Scopus directly, and you can put in your details there to find out, because it has, I think, first name, last name, and institution as the search criteria. So if you have done any author publications and they are in Scopus, you should be automatically logged into the Scopus database. And if it's not there, I mean, I would highly encourage you to kind of raise a query to think. But Orc Id and Publons, I mean, if you are out there, you will pretty much be there in Scopus as well. I think most of the data is almost the same across those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr.
So
Vivek, may I also answer your question?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
most of the time when we are looking at the reviewers, we search from the reviewers hub only, because the Elsevier has a platform where we can look for reviewers who all have volunteered or have been working on the same area as the title of the article is. We can find directly from there. So maybe with the Journal of Oral Biology and Craniofacial Research, we may be having about 1,000 reviewers, but not have all of them were known to me from the very beginning. It's from the Elsevier platform. I could pick and choose who is the best person for the particular article. So that's how, if you are registered, that's why we are having this second talk today, that you should be, as reviewer, you should be logged in on various platforms so that you are more visible. So the editors and the reviewer and the editorial board can pick you up online. The advantage of being online is that you can be seen anywhere. So that's the idea why we want you all to be logged in on Orc Id, Publons, and as well as Reviewers Hub. There are many questions. Dr. Lakshmi Priya, you want to say something?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Divya and Mr. Varun. I have a question, not exactly a question, a doubt, because the point of me registering for this workshop was to get familiarized with this side of the academics, because I have been on the other side. That is, I have submitted manuscripts and I have been as an author, but being a reviewer is something which is new, and I wanted to learn about that a little more. So that was the entire purpose of me registering for this workshop. And till now, so far so good. This is just the first session, so definitely, yeah. The question is, Mr. Varun, you had suggested that there is a course which you are conducting, which trains the reviewers, and for first timers like me who have never been in this field before. So is there a basic eligibility criteria? Like you said, editors would pick, that is, you can you can say that you can volunteer that you want to review. And you also mentioned that you need to inform them about your publications, etc. But is there a basic eligibility criteria for you to have fair chances of becoming a reviewer? That's my question.
Yeah, Dr. Priya. So one thing is editors want they want at least one publication, right? One article published. That's the minimum criteria, right? That's the least.
All right.
And then I think there are a lot of other factors when editors are actually picking up reviewers, because they want someone who's an expert in that field. They want some credibility to say you have been involved in a couple of reviews, because from an editor perspective, they see hundreds of manuscripts going every day, right? But
True.
I think that's where the volunteering one is pretty interesting. So one is, I would highly recommend you to do this course. It's a free course. Anyone can go and do it. And as soon as you do it, it actually links you back to Review Hub to say, now that you have completed this, do you want to go and volunteer for certain journals? And I think volunteering might be a good first step for you to put. It's not scaled up yet, but in the next couple of months, we do plan to scale it up for the editors.
Yeah. There's one more question from Dr. Ravi Shankar. Dr. Ravi Shankar, would you want to put forward your question?
A platform like ResearchGate, will it, whatever we have in the ResearchGate, can it be linked to become a reviewer? Activities in the ResearchGate.
Yeah, so we currently don't link to ResearchGate because our backend database is Scopus. But I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, right now with the Elsevier products, no, you cannot. You don't have ResearchGate linked to it.
Yeah, the credibility of Elsevier products, Elsevier Hub and Reviewers Hub and Scopus to choose a reviewer is much more than from the ResearchGate.
From ResearchGate, that's right. Yeah. Dr. Divya, I'm conscious you have another session, so let me know if you want me to take more sessions. No questions.
I think yeah, I can.
Can I ask the question?
The last one now. Yeah.
Okay. From an Elsevier point of view, you need only Scopus publication, or Web of Science publication is also you will be taking into account for as a reviewer.
Yeah. So so there are two parts to it. This right. One is on the volunteer to review profile. You can actually give your Web of Science email ID as well. You can give your but given, I mean, as a product, right? As someone who is in Elsevier, we want to leverage the Elsevier assets because we have all that information about you, and we don't have to ask you again and again for that, right? So what we have made mandatory now is basically a Scopus linking. So you need to claim your Scopus profile. And I mean, I don't know what are the chances that you have a Web of Science profile and not a Scopus profile. But if you go ahead, if you go and claim your profile, and if you're not able to find it, you can always raise it with the Scopus team within Elsevier to just say why your article is not indexed or why you're not in the thing. But as a strategic direction, I mean, we want to use our internal database more. But we do give a provision to actually.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm Dr. Fareen Kadge. Would that be okay?
Yeah, please go ahead. This is the last.
A quick question. Okay. So I've been a reviewer and everything. So I'm just going to fast track it. Yeah. So one quick question is, when we review so articles, I understand we have to stick to timeline. Only then will the journal be able to, fast process everything. Would you, and like I said, obviously you have to be Google, Scopus and all that. Like, I'm talking of a senior reviewer. I'm not talking about being a starter. So when I send an article, or my department send an article, would you consider, not in terms of publishing will be on merit, but would you consider in terms of fast tracking, because I'm a reviewer, so I'm into it and I'm currently sending articles? So that is one question as from academics. And second, a very broad view that it's a publication house, authors are there, everything is there. Just a wild thought. I think at some point, other than academic good things, we should be compensated if possible, if somebody is senior. Just a thought. Just as we go for exams and everything, I understand it's a noble thought, but then a journal is being published by a publisher. Just my view.
Dr. Fareen, I mean, I can't take the question on the financial thing for sure, because
just a thought to run it by, this is the beginning for a lot of people on reviewing. We may begin now. After 10 years, they may realize, hey, why not?
Yeah, but let me answer. So one of the things we are now trying to look is with the increase in the open access journals, right? You need to pay for open access basically for publication. But that's a good way to incentivize somebody to say, if you're a timely reviewer, if you're a fast reviewer, if you're a senior researcher, or if you're a editor, you get a different kind of discount rate so that your publication. So that's the direction in which we are going right now. But and the other thing I think you asked is, if you're a senior reviewer with a particular journal, does your article get published faster?
Not yet. I think, or accepted faster for review.
Yeah. So
it has to be published if it's meritorious. That is understood.
Exactly. So I think for the other aspect of it, if I flip it, I think from an editor's perspective, all articles which go through a peer review process, I think, are almost identical from what I see. I mean, Dr. Divya can correct me if I'm wrong, but and that means you need to find reviewers for everybody, and that part of the process is usually a little painful, right? But what would, sorry, I can again, but Dr. Fareen, we are trying to see how we connect the dots.
Please unmute yourself. Varun, please unmute yourself. I've muted all.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, So Dr. Fareen, we are trying to say, okay, where are the links between authors and reviewers and researchers to actually accelerate the whole process, right? we are not there yet, but I think your thoughts are in the right direction of how do we connect the dots, and I think in the end it's the editor's prerogative of what they want to move faster. But I think every editor wants to move every publication fast, right?
True.
I mean, that's
Very
they.
true. Very true.
Sorry, Dr. Fareen, you're muted.
Very often we send articles and then, the review process doesn't come through because they can't find reviewers, So the houses, see, that's a waste of time, unnecessary. That's what I mean. I don't mean Elsevier particularly. So you need to have a list of journals, the articles coming in, pick up your reviewers, senior, junior, whatever you need. So when an article comes in, you need to fast track the processing. That's all I mean, Except
and trust me, we are trying day in and day out to actually do that, but doing it at scale is something it's complex, but yeah, no, I think I totally understand your pain there.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Divya, I know 10 minutes over,
Yeah,
and you have another session.
Yes,
So
thank you, Varun, for being with us today and showing us Researchers Academy and showing us why one should be involved in peer review. With this, we take up the second speaker, Professor Charlene Chandra. You may share your screen. If there are any questions, we'll take up after Dr. Charlene's talk.
Okay. I think I am audible and everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Divya, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. First, a little about myself. I am Professor Charlene Chandra. I am basically an oral pathologist, but this is a hobby or additional interest that I have. Okay. So I'll be telling you a little bit about scholar ID or author ID. Why we should be using it, and what are our options, and which is better, which is worse, which is for what. So I'll give you an overview, try to give you an overview about the things. So what is a unique author ID or identifier? Now, author ID or identifier is basically just like your Aadhaar card. Like in India, I realize there are a few registrations from abroad also, from out of India. In India or in any country, there is a resident identification number, or suppose your driving license, okay, that has a particular number, which is a combination of few letters and few numbers, okay. So similarly, as an author or as a scientific person or a scientific writer, or even as an editor or publisher, you have a unique number. So if you have a unique number, the most important advantage is all your work can be accumulated and collected in one place. So if I, as an employer, want to know how is this person, then easiest method is go to your Oxford ID or researcher ID or whatever IDs you have given in your resume, and see your work, see where you stand. Because just for saying, I might say I have done 150 publications, but of those, how many are in good journals? How many have any standing? So as soon as I open a standard ID registered in your name, I will come to know everything in black and white and where you stand. Okay. So why we need author ID? A few points. First is to alleviate mistaken identity, distinguish between authors or similar names. About this, I'd like to tell you a little story. I have my name, as you all know, is Charlene Chandra. So in literature, it comes at Chandra S. And whenever I open my Google Scholar ID, which is about, say, once in a month or twice, once in 2 months, I find at least 500 articles which are written by some other Chandra S, and they are in no way related to me. They are on metallurgy, on fishing, on botany, whatnot, even on space science for that matter. Okay, so this is what happens when you use only name. If you use some identity like a Orc Id ID or something, then this kind of thing will not happen. Second is different indices have different naming formats. So it is easier if a indexing system is used where a person is labeled by an ID number. It is easier to search for a particular author's work. Any change in name of author does not impact tracking of past publications. Now, this thing is very relevant in countries where, especially for the better, the fairer counterparts, that there is a name change after marriage. So your name changes. So if you have an Orc Id ID in previous name, then you can always link your new name to that ID and your work will remain in one place. Also for authors who have worked in different institutions, increases trust in digital information. So what are the different IDs available, or repositories, or researcher IDs, or scholar profile sites? First, you have already heard from Vern about Scopus. Then there is a researcher ID, then Publons, then digital author identifier, then Google Scholar, then Orc Id, then Kudos, which comes by name of Grow Kudos. Then there are a few networking sites where you can put your scholar profile, like ResearchGate, Academia. Also, there is LinkedIn and so many others. Now, which of these you use? Most of us use Google Scholar. Some of us use Scopus. Some of us use Orc Id, and some of us use ResearchGate. ResearchGate is quite popular, I have seen, because it gives you free access to add your products or whatever you have done. Even they will take your conference proceedings also. If you have published presented a paper in some conference, that also is taken. Okay, so I'll try to discuss merits and demerits of a few of these. Actually, these questions, what I'm asking here, I'll be giving them as MCQs, which I mostly will be given to you tomorrow. So let's talk about Scopus. We have all heard about talk about Scopus, how good it is. So let's talk about a few bad points. First, the introduction of Scopus. It is an Elsevier's abstract and citation database launched in 2004, easy to navigate. There is ability to search from both forward and backward for particular citation. Means you start from the topic also, and you can start from the author also. Then citation data of 25,000 plus active titles is there in Scopus, and provides an alternative to impact factor. Which impact factor you might know is from Thomas Reuters. Advantages. It is already assigned to you if your name has not changed. Whenever you publish in some good journal which has some standing, you will be caught by Scopus. The Scopus will see your article and you will be rated accordingly, and you will be assigned, and you will have some H index and everything according to your work. Then it also provides metrics on your publications. Metrics means whatever H index or I index or you have. Disadvantage, it is a commercial product provided by Elsevier. It is automatic. If I don't want my data in Scopus, I cannot opt out, or I cannot make my information private. Anybody who has access to www, that is internet, can see my data without any limitation on area or country or anything. Now, the biggest disadvantage is it contains information only on items which are indexed by Scopus. And many of us know that even sometimes the articles which are the journals or scientific publications which are recognized by several other platforms like even PubMed or even National Medical Library, they are sometimes not indexed by Scopus. So you may have very good work, but if it is not indexed by Scopus, it will not appear on Scopus. Now, authors who have changed name or institution may have to merge their record. It's not automatic. Does not index everything, like book chapters are not there, book reviews are not there, and conference publication are also not there. And the biggest disadvantage, you cannot update it. Or updation will be automatic depending on the indexing in Scopus. You don't have any power to update it. Next is researcher ID. Now, researcher ID is again from Thomson Reuters, which is a commercial firm. It is an identifying system of scientific author on WOS, that is Web of Science. It was introduced by Thomson Reuters in 2008. And Web of Science Researcher ID is now on Publons. Advantages: brings the work to, by an author together under one ID, helps solving the problem of indices, including various names and name forms, can be updated by importing files from a citation manager. So there is one advantage of Researcher ID over Scopus, that you have power to update it by using its citation manager called as EndNote. It also provides citation metrics which may differ from other citation metrics. This is true for almost all those who are of us who are using several IDs like Orc Id or the Scopus or Publons or Google Scholar. You find that your H index is different in each and every citation metric. Then researchers can select privacy settings. So this gives more privacy as compared to Scopus. It is searchable. Users can search for others in a subject area. Disadvantages, again commercial. It is a free service. May change. They may start charging for it. Does not provide metrics on all items, only on items which are available in Web of Science. So just like Scopus, this again is a limiting factor, because only items which are in Web of Science or journals which are in Web of Science will be included. Now, because of this, metrics may not be accurate, because some very good articles, very good journals might not be there on Web of Science. Next is Publons. Now, Publons is a free service, again a commercial website. It provides a free service for academics to track academicians to track, verify, and showcase their peer review and editorial contributions for academic journals. So this is little different. This is to identify what all reviewer work you have done or how much editorial work you have performed. The editorial work may be as main editor or maybe as section editor. So it has advantage that it covers something which till now nobody was covering. It gives an indexing system or a rating system for reviewers. It was launched in 2012 by Clarivate Analytics. In 2017, bought it, which also owns the Web of Science, EndNote, and Scholar One. Now, DAI is actually a limited product. It is used within Dutch University or University of Applied Sciences or Dutch Research Institute. DAI is prepared from the ISO standard which follows the International Standard Name Identifier System. Google Scholar, many of us, whenever we have to reproduce I-20 index, H index, then we quickly open our Google Scholar and just copy whatever is there. Now, Google Scholar is a freely accessible web search engine released in beta form in 2004. It has gained a range of features over time. In 2006, a citation importing feature was implemented. This personal scholar citation provide, which are editable by authors himself, was incorporated in 2012. It automatically calculates and displays the individual H index and I10 index. Now, as I told you in the initial part, the H index and I10 index of any individual, if he does not see his inclusions or articles included in Google Scholar regularly, then it is going to be way different from other, way different from any other. So if you want somebody to follow your Google Scholar indices, then please keep looking at them regularly and editing them and removing whatever is actually not your work. Advantage, provide citation metrics which may be better than those in other indices. Why they are better, I have already told you. However, there is one more reason why they are better. Even if all your work only is there, even then it will be better. Why? Because Google Scholar will identify all the scientific work, including your textbooks and everything. The information can be public or private, depending on the user, how he wants it. User can share a link to the information if they keep it public. However, if they keep it private, then it will be accessible only to them. Based on the information that users choose to accept their own, and they can also add to the system. Authors can also add articles to the system which are not there, or an author identifier can be there. Disadvantage, publications not found by searching Google Scholar have to be added manually. So I don't know whether I should put it in disadvantage or advantage, because sometimes quite good journals may not be searched by Google Scholar, and it gives you option to add manually. So it is a disadvantage in the search engine, and advantage that it is at least giving you option to add manually. Now, it also indexes some questionable publication and the sources. All of you must have understood what I mean by questionable. The predatory journals and all that. We don't want those to be considered for indices. Again, this one is commercial, and it will be available only as long as Google wants it to make it available. Remember Google Reader, and of late, the latest of which most of us have become victim, the Google Drive space. Till now, Google was giving unlimited space. Now suddenly they have reduced it to 15 GB. And many of us had to lose some data or shift our data somewhere else. Next is ORCID, ORCID, which is a short form of Open Researcher and Contributor ID. So as the term indicates, it's an open system. It was incorporated as an independent non-profit organization in August 2010 in Delaware, USA, with an international board of directors. The aim was from transition from science, that is paper science, to e-science. Now, ORCID IDs are again a subset of International Standard Name Identifier, or ISNI, both using a 16-character identifier using digits 0 to 9 separated by 4 hyphens. It is quite similar to if you have used or loaded Windows or any other program provided by Microsoft. Then their ID is just like this. It has 4 digits, then a dash, then a 4 digits, then a dash, then 4 digits, then a dash, then 4 digits, then a dash, and then again 4 digits. Because Microsoft loves to have 5-digit system, 5 groups of digits. So ISNI has reserved a block of identifiers for ORCID from 0000, 0001, 5000, 0007 to 000, 000, 350000001. So within this, your identity number should be there in OSID. Let's talk a little bit about advantages and disadvantages. Advantages: the authors can collect and share information about their work, control their profiles and information they share. It is a persistent system, can be used to track work over time, even if the author changes name. So this is one big advantage. It saves time when publication information is needed, providing OSID number to funding organization or publisher. They will, you have to give all your publications and everything. Just give your OSID number and they will know where you stand. The same goes for whenever you are for some interview also. Just an OSID number can give a lot about you that in the interview actually. It can be used to direct the person.
Charlene, please unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I was telling, it can be used to direct others to a summary of your scholarly record, or an OSID can be provided as a part of author information or even as your electronic signature. It is not proprietary or commercial, so this is an advantage. Data can be incorporated from citation management system in form of BibTeX file. It can also connect to EndNote. Disadvantage: can be used as a means of oversight, can open a free system for now, but can change. Even in a non-profit organization, they may start needing funding and it may change. Because it is open and free, the long-term viability is not known. So let's talk about a little bit of comparison of different systems. Provider-wise, 4 of these are commercial: Researcher ID, Scopus, Google Scholar, and Publons, whereas OSIT is done by a non-profit organization and is a non-commercial system, and it has directors in its board from all over the world. Okay. Subject coverage: Researcher ID information not available of Web of Science can be added by authors. However, it does not consider them in the metrics, in the calculation of your index calculation. Scopus not index cannot be added. If your publication is not indexed by Scopus, you cannot add it. Information on publications not included in Google Scholar can be manually added. So this gives the best option of adding. And OSIT also, as I told you just now, gives you the option of adding by BibTeX file or EndNote. Next is management by scholars. Such an ID, scholars can commit the, edit their entries and can add bibliographic information. In Scopus, you cannot edit it yourself. However, you can request the owners of Scopus to do it for you. However, you cannot add anything. In Google ID or Google Scholar ID, you can edit your entry and add bibliographic information, and you can, as I told you, also make it private, so nobody else can see you without your permission. OSID, again, you can edit and can add bibliographic information. Comparison, again, included publications and updating possibility. Researcher ID, yes, can be directly done from other indices like Science Citation Index or Medline. It can be directly imported. You don't need to do it one by one. Scopus cannot update, so no question of how you do it. So Google Scholar again can be updated manually. However, it includes predatory journals also. So you have to be a little careful in using Google Scholar. ORCID ID again can be updated in BibTeX format. So updation wise, I think such an ID is the best one because you can directly just import it. You don't have to make any format or anything. Then metrics. The metrics in researcher ID is only on the articles that are indexed on Web of Science. All the other articles which you have added will not be considered in the metrics like I10 and H-index. Scopus already discussed. Only if the article is in Scopus, then it will be considered. Otherwise, it will not be considered. You cannot add it. Google Scholar, it provides metrics or articles that are indexed in Google Scholar. And as we discussed, Google Scholar has so many kind of journals, even predatory journals. So no comments on that. ORCID does not provide metrics. So this is one big disadvantage of ORCID, that it will not give you your indices. Privacy management. It is possible to choose in case of researcher ID. Scopus does not give any option. Google Scholar, again, as I told you, gives you an example, gives you an option whether you want to make a profile public or private. ORCID, yes, possible to choose information shared on profile. So, which is the best system? From ease of point uses, the best is, I think, Google Scholar, because you can access it from anywhere. It is created for you. You can add anything, including your books, your scientific papers, and everything. Even the conference proceedings can be added. But which is safe, which is reliable, and which is good with the end user? In that, the Google Scholar fails, because Google Scholar is not safe, because Google Scholar will include all the publications which are similar to your name. As is the example I gave you in the beginning, whenever I open my Google Scholar ID, like yesterday, just while preparing this, I opened my ID. The first article which was there was about metallurgy, done by some Dr. S. Chandra, and it is included in my profile. So the citation, the indices which they are providing are of no relevance. And even the third, fourth, fifth article was not mine, because I know which other articles I have written. Then safety wise, almost all are good. Reliability. Now, reliability is a question because in a product which is owned by a commercial company, or like Thomas Reuters or Elsevier or Web of Science or any other, or Clipet, they may use it for some commercial work also. So reliability is a little questionable in case of the commercially owned indices system. Whereas something which is done by a non-profit organization may be more reliable. This is my opinion, and Varun, please don't take it personally. I have nothing against Scopus or Elsevier as such. Now, most important, end user. Why we are making all this? Point one, whenever we are sending something for publishing, what the editor does or what the publisher does in the first place, he will open your Web of Science or ORCID or Scopus ID and check what is your standing. And just by seeing your standing, he will be able to judge whether you are a good author or you may be a new author, but even if you have published one or two works, then they will reflect in your ID. And second use, suppose somebody contacts me or I contact somebody in a unknown institution where nobody knows me, that okay, we want to collaborate with you on this and this subject or this study. Now, if they want to know what is my standing, then best method for them is to see my work that I have done in that field. And for that, the best is to see these indices and find out where I stand. And same goes for the employer point of view. Now, like if somebody is appearing for an interview, you can give your ORCID ID or the researcher ID or Scopus ID to them. So they can see the interviewer before he meets you or even sees you physically, they can see actually where you stand. So this brings me to the end of my talk. Thank
you. Thank you, Dr. Charlene. Really good to show us what are the various platforms where we can get recognized and which we can use for our benefit for getting our indices. Reviewers Hub is a good platform from Elsevier, and it was, I think last year only it was launched. So it is only 1 year old, but yes, yeah.
I did not include it because the Reviewers Hub actually is only for those who are reviewing for Elsevier. It will not include others. So it is quite a limited system, just like Scopus.
Yes.
So that is why additionally I did not include
Yes.
it.
And the one thing you said about Google Scholar, I totally agree with you, because it's very user friendly. If I don't have access to anything, when I started my journey into writing or reviewing, the first thing I logged into was ResearchGate, because then I was very happy to see so many articles are there. So it gives you a sort of encouragement. Yes, ResearchGate so many articles, but then when actually you want to see what actual you have done, what is the best scientific input you have made, then you have to look into Scopus and see what does Scopus say about you, or Orc Id say about you. Orc Id doesn't give indices, as Dr. Charlene said, but yes, Scopus gives you an insight into your indices. And now it's an era where everything is ranked. When the universities are ranked, when you are asked to give your indices, what is each author's H index or item index, and then what matters is not ResearchGate, not Google Scholar. Then you have to give your Scopus H index and item index. So you need to register at Scopus or Web of Science. Then Web of Science is really, as Dr. Charlene again said, not everyone can get access to Scopus because it's a commercial platform. But yes, through Publons, you can get a researcher ID in Web of Science as well. So Publons ID is both for Publons as well as Web of Science. So with this, we are open for your questions. Please raise hands. Dr. Vivek Gupta already there. Dr. Vivek? May I request anybody else who wants to ask, please raise hands. We'll call you one by one.
One comment I can see in the chat section that Google Scholar requires an institutional email ID. It doesn't require an institutional email ID, that's for sure, because my institutional email ID ends with kgmc.edu, but my Google ID is with drchandra32@gmail.com.
There's one thing. If you log in with your institution ID, then it will be visible to all. If you log in with your personal ID, it will be visible only to you. So if I want to look at Dr. Charlene Chandra, and if he has not, he doesn't have his institutional ID as the login ID, then I won't be able to access what his Google Scholar shows. So it's better to go through your institutional ID if you have.
Another question I can see in the chat section. Would one author have different IDs? Example, one for Scopus, one for Web of Science. Of course, yes. There will be different IDs for each and every platform.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody was trying to ask a question, I think.
Sir, myself, Dr. Kaushal Kishore Agrawal. This
Yeah.
was very good presentation, and I learned so much. But I would like to know that out of all the scholar ID, which is the best one, and how?
That is actually a personal decision, because if you want your H index to shine above all in university or your institution, then Google Scholar is the best, because it will keep including whatever work
Yes.
even you have not done. So, but
So
I
that-
feel
Yeah. Web of Science
Scopus
will have
and also
lower value than. Yes.
But on the basis of the quality, we cannot control the quality on the Google Scholar. But quality can
Yeah.
be controlled on the on other ID, such a ID and the Pavlon ID. So, but so there are some lacunae there. So how? So according to you, would which ID should be considered to get the information about the researcher?
Okay.
see, it will vary according to what is your end use. Like if your end use is to present yourself in front of an employer, then I'll advise you to use OSIR ID, because you can add all your work. However, if you want to calculate your H index, because others give H index and indices calculation, which OSID does not give, which is a big drawback for OSID. So for that, you have to go to other indices systems like Scopus or such a ID.
Okay.
So it will again depend on what is your actual use.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
if you want to list all your publications, Orchid ID will suffice, because you get all your publications in a straight list. So that's how you get all your publications in single area. So that is the advantage of Orchid. But if you want to have your H index or I10 index, Orchid will not give, as Dr. Charlene is saying. Then there are two options. Either you use Google Scholar, and which will give a very high value because it is taking up all your articles.
All your
whether,
articles.
yeah, they are peer reviewed or not. But if you are going with Scopus, then you have a limited articles in that, and therefore the H index would be lower than what it is in Google Scholar.
Thank you,
But
ma'am. Thank you so much.
it will be more authenticated and more acceptable to scientific community because of its standards.
Sir, one small question, sir. Little bit personal. Sir, I do have two Scopus IDs, sir. Actually, when I go into my RSID, both the ID will reflect. Actually, it will have some papers will be there in one Scopus ID, and another paper will have some more ID, but they are not overlapping. I want to merge these two Scopus ID. How to do it, sir?
Scopus gives you an option to merge, because even my 4 papers, I don't know how initial 4 papers, they were under different ID. So I merged them about 3-4 years back. Exact method I don't remember now, but it does give an option to merge because I have done it.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I'll try to find it.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Vivek.
Sir, is H index the only index to be a good reviewer, sir?
No, there's H index, there I20 index, but it's not for reviewer. It's for authors, for those who are working in science, not for reviewers.
Okay.
Reviewer indices are found only in Publons and also in the Elsevier system.
Thank you.
And that's not an index actually. That is more of a recognition system.
Okay.
So thank you everyone for joining in today. In your chat box, we have put a feedback link. It would be good if you can give us a feedback that will guide us how to go in the next few days. And thank you, Dr. Charlene, for this wonderful interactive lecture. And
Thank
we'll
you.
join again tomorrow, same time, same link.
Bye-bye.
Link is not opening. Maybe you need to copy paste. We'll put in the group as well. Then you may put the feedback. We'll put this link in the group as well. Thank you. If there are still any queries, we are happy to take them in the WhatsApp group as well. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.